In the past few years, the video game industry has been booming. In 2023, the industry is projected to reach a staggering $220 billion in revenue. It may not mean anything to you, but if you compare it to the movie industry, which in 2021, the global box office revenue added up to $21.3 billion. Obviously, COVID had an effect, but it is still not close to the video game industry. And I'm sure that the box office is heavily carried by Disney and Marvel Studios movies in this day and age. In just the past few years, we have seen critically acclaimed video game adaptations with series such as Arcane League of Legends and Cyberpunk Edgerunners with perfect scores on Rotten Tomatoes, to series like Castlevania. The Sonic the Hedgehog movies are also doing very well with audiences. Mortal Kombat and Pokemon Detective Pikachu, while not having huge ratings, still belong in the conversation. And how can we forget PlayStation Productions' first major release with the movie Uncharted, starring Tom Holland, also a game made by Naughty Dog. But we are not here to talk about all those other adaptations, we are here to talk about the critically acclaimed video game adaptation of the even more critically acclaimed video game, The Last of Us, which released back in 2013 for PlayStation 3. It was made by the talented studio Naughty Dog, with director Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann, with music by Gustavo Santaolalla. Shall of course not forget the people who brought the characters to life, such as Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, Annie Wershing, Merle Dandridge, and of course Nolan North, among many others. And a special mention to Hannah Hayes, who briefly voiced Sarah and scarred millions of players across the world. In the HBO adaptation, both Neil Druckmann and Gustavo returned to their respective positions, with Craig Mason helping with writing duties. It stars Pedro Pascal as Joel, Bella Ramsay as Ellie, Nico Parker as Sarah, and Torv as Tess, and Storm Reid as Riley. Merle Dandridge reprises her role as Marlene. Now let's just get right into it. So far, the general public has only seen the first episode, which means I only have the first episode to judge off. But so far it seems to be sticking close to the source material with admittedly some changes. The first major change is of course the character of Sarah. She got a lot more screen time here than she does in the game. I actually counted about 28 minutes of screen time before her very tragic demise, compared to the game where we only control her for about 3 minutes, with her being on screen for a total of 12 minutes. That means we get to spend about 18 extra minutes of time with Sarah to flesh out her character a bit more. In the game she was pretty much just contained to the house, but here we see her go to school, visiting the neighbors, going out to fix Joel's watch and stuff. And another change with Sarah is that she has been aged up from 12 to 14, probably to make her a bit more mature. If you thought I was going to make a big deal out of the race swapping, which minority of people seem to be really pissed about, you are sorely mistaken. I just do not care. But yeah, I was really happy to see that they fleshed out the character of Sarah a little bit more, only to take her away from us, of course. Like, what messed up soul at Sony thought we needed to relive those bad memories? Another exclusive to this series is the opening talk show. I was actually really intrigued with what the doctor had to say. What person in the audience would have predicted that 35 years later everything he said would actually come to fruition? He must be laughing his ass off somewhere, if he's still alive that is. I figured that he made the hypothesis and took it to heart and probably dashed out of the country as soon as the temperature started rising. He almost convinced me that the fungi could evolve like that in real life. Moving on from Sarah to another teenager, Ellie. In the game, Ellie and Marlene seem to have a pretty close relationship, and Ellie seems to really care about Marlene. Now in the series, Ellie has no clue who Marlene is, despite Marlene knowing who Ellie is and somewhat taking care of her, it seems. She also brought up Riley, so she definitely knows something. Now, I never played The Last of Us The Left Behind DLC, so I don't know if Marlene features in that game in any capacity. I just wonder how Ellie doesn't know Marlene if Marlene knows about Riley and Ellie spent time together. Seems that they only met when Ellie was younger, but that leaves the question, how young was she when her parents passed away? And what is the reason for Marlene taking care of her? Because if she knew her from way back then there's nothing to do with the bite. I just don't really understand. Maybe I'm gonna have to replay the games. Maybe there's something there that explains it. One weird change that I didn't feel was necessary was how their vehicle crashed. In the game, a car crashes into the side of their vehicle, and here it is an explosion from a plane. And here's one thing, I didn't like how they made Joel pummel that officer to death with his bare hands. Now, he obviously got PTSD from the time his daughter was shot and killed, but it just gets a little bit overboard for me. But this might play into the future because we see that Joel does indeed have some violent tendencies. I mean, obviously we have seen it before when he goes on that mass spree in the hospital to save Ellie at the end of the game and then lies straight to her face. Well, I guess Tommy going to jail is also another change. Now, this first episode I thought was really good. The thing I looked most forward to in the first episode, as morbid as it sounds, is the death of Sarah. We all knew that she was going to die, of course, but it was just a matter of how they would execute it, and I thought it was very well handled, and I can admit that it did indeed get a few tears out of me. Even before the scene even happened, my eyes were tearing up because I knew how it was going to end. Maybe in an alternate universe Sarah lives happily with her father Joel. I would probably rate this 9.5 out of 10, and I can't wait for future episodes. I haven't been this excited for a series episode since The Sandman or The Rings of Power, whatever released more recently. This series just makes me want to replay the game, which I don't normally do, especially with horror games. I've only played The Last of Us once, which was back in 2015 with the remastered version. I may even play it on this channel, to be completely honest. Now, this isn't a review, it was not supposed to be a review, I just wanted to talk a little bit about The Last of Us on HBO. Now, I may talk a little bit more about The Last of Us if there's an episode that really intrigues me. Now, I just feel like for the opening of a series, it's worth to talk about. I do wonder how many seasons this show is going to get. There are, of course, only 2 games as of right now, and perhaps there will be a The Last of Us Part 3. Now, I'm not really sure if they have been talking about any of that. Now, are they going to make 2 seasons per game, so that would mean 4 seasons total, or are they going to expand it to 3 seasons? Now, I think 2 seasons per game will be pretty good. Well, 2 seasons for the first game and maybe 3 seasons for the second game, because, or even more than that, because that game is apparently fairly long, so it would only be right to make more seasons than the first game. Now, we also know that in The Last of Us Part 2, if they ever go that far with the episodes or the series, how are they going to handle the aging up of Ellie? Because there is a time jump there, and unless they go with the natural progression of Bella Ramsay as Ellie, they're going to have to change actresses. But that is totally speculation for a whole other time. Of course, we will just have to wait and see. As I said, they may go with Bella Ramsay again if they go with the natural progression of aging. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this The Last of Us discussion, and I will see you later. Goodbye.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you.